Good afternoon, good people. I hope I'm audible enough. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Can you hear me? Awesome. I've seen thumbs up. So thank you so much for joining us for this webinar eTIMS for SMEs, what every business owner needs to know. So I want to warmly welcome you to this afternoon session. Thank you for sharing your lunch with us, for being here with us. We value your presence. My name is Karen Duranira, and I will be your moderator for today's session. And on behalf of Lavin Consulting Services Limited, I would like to sincerely thank all of you for taking the time to join us. So before we quickly start, shall we begin with a word of prayer? So I will say the prayer. Please, let's believe and pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, we come before you this beautiful hour with a lot of thanksgiving for what you have done for all of us. Thank you for gathering us here this lunch hour session, for this amazing discussion that we're going to have, which is meant to really impact business owners and help them make decisions that will positively impact their businesses. We thank you for each and every person that has been able to join us this afternoon, and we want to ask you to really guide us through the session. We bless your name. Thank you for your God, and we give you all the glory. In Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen. All right, so thank you so much for that. So before we begin, I will just give us a few housekeeping notes. Just to note that we will require you to keep your microphones muted throughout the session. This is only to avoid background noise and make sure that the conversation flows well. Also, if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to use the chat feature, type them there, and we will attend to them during the Q&A session, which is also dedicated. We have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of this session, so we will be happy to take all the questions then. Please put them in the chat section. So to today's discussion, it is a very hot discussion. It is a topic that most business owners struggle with, understanding eTIMS And that's why we are here today. The session is designed to help SMEs better understand eTIMS, tax compliance requirements, especially here in Kenya, and the practical steps that businesses can take to remain compliant. Yeah, yes. So we will be addressing all the questions. We know that there are a lot of questions. So in as much as this is what this conversation is about, don't worry. We will take all the questions that you have. So to introduce our speaker for today, our lady, Monica Ngage. Monica is a certified public accountant and also the finance director at Lavin Consulting Services Limited. She has had extensive experience in financial management, accounting, and regulatory compliance. She has experience supporting businesses to build strong financial systems and maintain proper financial records. She specializes in financial reporting, tax compliance, budgeting, and internal controls. And at Lavin Consulting, she works very closely with businesses to help them stay compliant so that they can make sound decisions that support the growth of their businesses. So please join me in welcoming our very able speaker for the day, Miss Monica Ngage. Monica, the floor is yours. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, Karen, and for the good introduction. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for the webinar. And so, since my introduction has been made, we'll just, without further much ado, we'll proceed to the presentation. So just a moment as I share my screen. Karen, please confirm if I'm audible.
Yes, you're audible, and we can also see your screen.
Great. Thank you, everyone. So we shall just start. So our webinar objectives for today, we are going to look at what is eTIMS so that we just get to understand who needs to comply, why you need to comply. We'll also explore the eTIMS solutions that are currently available that you can use, and also the common mistakes to avoid, and also what you need to do as an SME to ensure that you remain compliant. So basically, an eTIMS is just an invoicing system, and it's a software solution that has been designed by KRA just to ensure that all your invoices are transmitted to them and they are aware of your income that you're generating. And therefore, it's simply an electronic system, that software that you are using to generate the invoices. This system can be accessed through electronic devices like your laptops, your computers, your smartphones, and also your personal digital assistance devices. So who needs to use eTIMS? Here is where we have common misconceptions about who should use eTIMS. I think many people tend to think that it's only those maybe registered businesses, big companies that are supposed to be using eTIMS, but this is not right, because everyone, so long as you're doing business in Kenya, you're supposed to be registered on eTIMS. So whether you are a company, whether you are a partnership, whether you are sole proprietorship, whether you're in the formal business sector or the informal, maybe border borders, mama mbogas, all of those are required to be registered on eTIMS and to use eTIMS. If you're a landlord, if you're a person with VAT or not registered for VAT, I know sometimes back people used to think that it's only for those people with the VAT obligation, but this is not the case. And because whether you are registered or not, you need to use eTIMS. If you are an NGO, if you are a school, if you are a tours and travel agent, all those are required to, that's much better, yeah. So whether you are an NGO or a school, you're also required to register to use eTIMS. So how does eTIM work? First of all, you are required to register for eTIMS. So, and to register for eTIMS is normally done online. through the etims.kra.go portal, where now you request for service, you input your details, and then you get a password. So once you get the password, you can now log in into your account, and now you'll be able to be generating invoices from there. So once you generate the invoice has to be transmitted to KRA, and it has to be validated. And now once it's validated, now the customer receives the compliant invoice. So why now should you use eTIMS? Effective 1st of January 2024, the Finance Act requires that for you to be able to claim any business expenses when filing your returns, then the expenses must be supported by eTIMS invoices. And this is what we are currently experiencing while trying to file the returns for the year 2025. And as you can remember, KRA had issued a notice back then, around November thereabout, explain about the expenses, the need to validate the expense and incomes on eTIMS. Therefore, if you had any expenses that were not generated by eTIMS, between January and around March, the system was automatically rejecting those expenses that are not eTIMS supported when you try filing your income tax returns. However, I think by now they have made some few adjustments, and they have given us an opportunity to claim the expenses that are not generated on eTIMS. However, going forward this year, things are going to be tight, and there will not be such allowance this year. So you need to ensure that you're complying, so that whatever expenses you have, you'll be able to deduct them against the income that you make, and therefore that ensures that you are not paying higher taxes. For also, you need to have eTIMS for tax compliance. These days, when you try to get tax compliance certificates on iTax, if you're not registered on eTIMS, automatically that one disqualifies you from getting a tax compliance. So if you need to get a tax compliant, which is also a major document that is used for maybe tendering and other maybe compliance issues, then you need to ensure that you are compliant on eTIMS. When you talk of expenses and eTIMS, there are some expenses that are excluded from being eTIMS compliant, and I'll be telling you why they are excluded. First of all, we have salaries and wages. These ones are not required to have eTIMS invoices. Why? Because KRA expects that these salaries and wages have already been declared under payee, and so it's easy for them to pull all that data from the payee system. Therefore, if you have any salaries and wages, you don't have to go issuing invoices. However, where you're dealing with consultants, then those ones you'll need to ask for invoices so that those expenses becomes allowable. The other thing is on interest that is also earned because mostly maybe those ones are from the banks, and the KRA considers that bank statements is an official document. Just like when they are doing the KRA, the normal audits, they ask you to submit bank statements. So bank statements are sufficient evidence, and therefore you'll be able to get those information from there. And that also applies to the bank fees and charges. So whatever is shown on the bank statements is considered as official documents, and it's sufficient evidence in matters regarding to Kenya Revenue Authority. For import, you see they are using the ICMS system, and it's also a system that is regulated by KRA. So any imports that you make, when you register the entries and there are taxes that are applicable, KRA is also able to obtain that data. Therefore, for any imports, you don't have to raise an eTIMS invoice. For air passenger ticketing, this one is regulated globally. And because it has its own system of ticketing, the air ticket also serves as sufficient evidence to KRA. And because it's also more complex, also integrating it with eTIMS would make the compliance more complex, and therefore KRA has excluded this one from being from eTIMS. The next thing is on investment allowances. So this is the depreciation part, the tear and wear for using the fixed assets like the motor vehicles, like the equipment. So these ones do not need to have an eTIMS invoice, since it's not like an actual expense, but rather we are just accounting for a tear and wear and tear for using an equipment or maybe an asset. There are expenses that are subject to withholding tax that is final. So that is something like in betting, because the withholding tax itself is the final tax, no other tax will be needed to pay, then this expense is fully exempted from eTIMS compliance. There are also services provided by non-resident person. So those are the digital services tax, and the government has its own way of regulating the digital services providers, such as maybe if you're using services from Zoom, from Google. So the invoice they give you will show you even the tax details. However, they do not expect them because it's not an non-resident in Kenya, so eTIMS will not be applicable to them, but they have a way that they remit that information to the government through the digital services tax. So therefore, the KRA has that information, and therefore they do not need to issue eTIMS invoices. So next we are going to look at common mistakes that SMEs make, or some of us make. Number one is not registering for eTIMS. So if you're not registering on eTIMS, the law requires you to register. So you're already going against the law, and it's also going to make business difficult for you. Why? Because if you're not eTIMS compliant, then no one else would want to trade with you, and therefore they'll go for the person who is eTIMS registered. So even for not registering on eTIMS will also deny you many business opportunities. If you're still issuing the manual invoices, that one is not acceptable because the manual invoices are not transmitted to KRA, and also you are also denying your customers a chance to claim those business expenses, as we had seen above. Then there's the issue of delayed transmission. Sometimes you may generate the invoice, yes, eTIMS, but because it says internet, if it's not transmitted to KRA, then that invoice is not recognized at KRA. And then that means that your income has not been registered, and also the buyer will not also be able to claim that expense. Using incorrect invoice details. For example, we have seen instances whereby maybe you won't use somebody else's PIN to issue invoices. It means definitely you're overstating the other person's income, which is not correct. And also maybe if you use the wrong buyer PIN, then that means you're denying your client the chance or the opportunity to claim that expense. And it will also now be hectic again coming to correct those details. So you need to ensure that you use the correct invoice details, including also the quantity of the items. If you have physical items, ensure that the quantity is captured correctly and also the amount is captured correctly, because if you maybe understate the amount, that means you're overstating your incomes. If you understate, then again, it's also not correct according to the Kenya Revenue Authority. So ignoring compliance requirements, that as I had explained earlier, sometimes if you ignore, then they say ignorance is no defense. Therefore, if you are ignorant, then means that so many opportunities are going to bypass you, and then you will not be able to remain competitive in this current business world. Also, in terms of ignoring compliance, it means that some of the benefits that are there, like currently you have the auto population, which also makes sure that you have simplified returns. You'll not have any opportunity for that, and also it increases your risks of KRA audits, because they would be wondering maybe you're trading but they've not seen your returns or your eTIMS invoices, what's happening. So it will attract audits, and you can all agree with me that those audits are not normally easy, They are normally hectic and also time consuming. So you don't want to get into that. And therefore, the best thing is to comply for your business to continue operating effectively. Failure to maintain proper business records. This is where most of us are making a lot of mistakes. And if you don't have proper records, then it means that in case of an audit, whatever the taxman decides that that is your tax obligation, you will pay because you don't have anything to prove that you didn't make this sale or whatever was received into the bank, all of it was not revenue generated. Maybe it was a loan or maybe it was a refund for something. Therefore, you need to have proper records so that you can show this is the income. I have all the invoices with me. They are all eTIMS compliant. And then you are able to separate, because once the audits are done, the KRA will only ask for the bank statements. And most of the time, they'll take all the credits to be income. So it's upon you to justify that not everything on the credit side is an income. And this one will only be possible if we have the proper business records. Assumption that eTIMS is for VAT registered businesses only. As I said at the beginning, eTIMS is for everyone carrying out business. So if you assume it's only for those who are VAT registered, then it means that you're not being compliant and you'll miss out on many opportunities. So here I've just made a summary to show how it affects your business. I have person A and I have person B. So we are assuming that both person A and person B are registered on eTIMS, and therefore they are issuing their invoices through eTIMS. Then person A has eTIMS compliant expenses, meaning where at the point of buying, he was giving out his KRA PIN, and then he has all compliant expenses, and person B does not have compliant expenses. So both of them made sales equals sales amounting to 300,000 each. And then the expenses for person A amounted to 100,000, expenses for person B amounted to 150,000. So up to this point, we'd expect that person A would pay more taxes as compared to person B, because person A has less expenses as compared to person B. But this is not the case if they are because of the non-compliant eTIMS expenses. So when it comes to income tax, and this is just a simple illustration, there are many other things that are considered. So if you made sales of 300,000, person A will have allowable expenses of 100,000. And then now the taxable income that is resulting is 200,000. So if you subject that to a tax rate of 30%, he pays a tax of 60,000. Then person B with the same income, he had expenses of 150,000. But these expenses, because they are not eTIMS compliant, they have been disallowed. So the total taxable income remains to be 300,000, and that's how it remains. He ends up paying a tax of 90,000 shillings, which is 30,000 more than the person A. Yet they made the same income, yet person B had more expenses. So that is how it affects if you're not compliant, both from the selling side and also from the purchasing point of view. Now we've seen the impacts of not having the eTIMS, which expenses are exempted. Now we need to look at the solutions that are available. So how can you ensure that you are compliant with the eTIMS? So previously, before we moved to the online systems, we moved from the manual ETL that we were using previously to ETLs that were eTIMS compliant. So that eTIMS ETL would still generate invoices and transmit them to KRA for validation. And they're still being used, and they're still okay. But I think now as we move into more digitalization, maybe they may be phased off. We are not sure, but they're still working and they're still compliant so long as they're transmitting data to KRA and there's validation. So after that, now we move to the online, the other eTIMS solutions that are available. And what KRA is doing is just to ensure that there are as many as possible, so to reach out to a wide base and also to ensure everyone can easily access, so that you don't have an excuse that maybe I didn't have internet, that's why I was not able to issue an invoice using eTIMS. So there are as many options as possible to ensure that everybody is included. So we have the online portal, which is a web-based platform, and this one is accessible through the etims.kra.go.ke. So when you go there, you just click that link, and then you'll be able to input your details, and then you'll be registered. Then there's eTIMS Client. So this is a software that is installed on your laptop or your computer. So the only limitation with this is that you have to have that laptop or computer all the time if you need to issue an invoice. So it's not flexible, it's a bit rigid, but the online portal can be accessed from anywhere so long as you have the logins. eTIMS Lite, it's also a web-based solution. It's accessible through your eCitizen. So everybody has an eCitizen account. So then you need to log in there and then you can issue invoices. So it's accessible through the eCitizen. And that one makes it easy for the small scale people, small scale traders, so that because eCitizen is something that is easy to access because it has all other government services available there, including now the KRA, and it's so simple and so straightforward, so you don't have to struggle. So mostly it was built for maybe sole proprietorships. And then we have the eTIMS Lite, that's the USSD, where you dial *222# and then you'll have a full menu that pops up that will give you guidance on what you need to do. So this one is for persons who do not have internet, so that you don't have an excuse that there was no internet and I didn't issue the invoice. So you can use the USSD code as well. And then we have also the eTIMS Lite. It's a mobile app that is accessible on Play Store or Apple Store. So you can download it and from there you'll be able to issue the invoices. Then there's the eTIMS system to system integration. This is for large corporates that have accounting systems. So it's possible for the accounting system to be integrated to the eTIMS system so that you don't have to issue invoices from the system and again go on eTIMS and issue invoices. So it's integrated so that once you issue the invoice from the system, it directly transmits to KRA and that one becomes an eTIMS compliant invoice. Then there's the reverse invoicing and buyer-initiated solutions. So this one has been introduced because there are people who are not issuing eTIMS invoices, and then we have now the business that now needs to claim those maybe input purchases from, say, like you bought mbogas from Mama Mboga, and Mama Mboga has not given you an invoice, and you need to claim that one as your input or your purchases. So you can initiate the invoicing yourself from the buyer. The buyer can initiate the invoicing from their side, and so once they initiate the invoicing, the seller will receive a notification that this and this invoice has been raised. So if they accept, then that invoice becomes complete and it's transmitted to KRA. But if they reject, then that means I shall not proceed from that point and it's not a valid invoice. Then recently there's eTIMS for fuel station system that is being used for fuel stations. So basically these ones, it's being integrated with the point of sale, so maybe the pump softwares. And then there's once they sell, it's able to generate eTIMS compliant invoices. So of importance to note is that each solution that is used here has a different invoice number. So if you notice a different invoice number, don't wonder why. It's because of the solution that you're using. The important thing is to confirm that the invoice is valid. However, if you issued an invoice using the eTIMS Lite, then the credit note must also be issued through the same eTIMS Lite. So whichever solution you use to generate the invoice is the same solution that can be used to generate the credit note. Otherwise, if you try a different system to issue a credit note, then it will not be possible. So we have the features of valid eTIMS invoice. So you need to look out for these things to confirm and verify that the invoice is valid. Number one, we have the QR code. So if you scan this QR code, it gives you full invoice details. Then it gives you the date that the invoice was created, including the time. It has the invoice number here. And then we have the serial number of the device that you're using. Each solution has its own serial number that is particular to the seller. So it has to have the serial number and then the receipt signature as well. So the other thing is it has to show the seller details. So the seller details in this case is ABC and also show the PIN number. It can also show other details like the contact information depending on the setup and the settings of your solution that you are using. And then you're selling to who? You have the buyer and the buyer PIN. But in most circumstances, buyer PIN is not mandatory because there are those people that will not give you their PIN. Probably they don't need to claim that expenses, or maybe they are mostly just cash sale customers. So it's not mandatory to have buyer PIN, but if it's available, it's necessary to put it there. And then we have now the control unit invoice number. So this is the number that KRA uses to identify your income. So the first part of the invoice number, it bears the serial number of your device, and then now the serial number of your invoice. So this is invoice number one. If I generate another one, it moves to number two. So that's how it is. And then now it comes to give the item. Which item are you providing? You give the quantity and then the price. Of importance also is to note that when you're creating the invoice, you need to know whether the item that you're providing is taxable or not. So that is important so that you know how to categorize it. So this one is non-VAT. So the total amount is 1,000 and there's no tax that is applicable there. The other thing, it also shows the payments method, whether it's M-Pesa, but those ones are optional, the terms and conditions. That's where maybe you can put some notes if you need the client to take some notes. And also now this is, it has this confirmation at the bottom that this is a valid computer generated invoice. So this one was generated through eCitizen and it has been validated by Kenya Revenue Authority. So that is what we've just spoken about. So if you need to verify if your invoice is correct, you need to scan the QR code on the invoice or go to the iTax portal and you go at the invoice checker part menu and then you input your invoice number. Therefore, once you verify, all the details that we've talked about will be available on the results, and therefore you'll be able to confirm if the invoice is valid or not. Sometimes it may take time to validate because for those businesses with large volume of transactions, sometimes the transmission is a bit slow. So it means maybe if you generated an invoice, you have to wait a little bit longer until it has been transmitted to KRA. So sometimes it does not reflect immediately, but with time it does reflect. So what should you do as an SME? We said you need to register, and this one will allow you to be compliant. It will be easy for you to get tax compliance and also to issue invoices that are compliant, which also makes it possible for you to trade with other people. You need to choose the right eTIMS solution, whichever solution fits you the best, which is simple for you to use, so that you are compliant. Sometimes you may choose a solution that you don't know how to use, and then it complicates everything. So you need to ensure you have the right eTIMS solution. For example, you said the one that is installed on your laptops. It makes it rigid because you have to move around with your laptop. So it's not flexible enough to allow you to bill at any point or at any location. You also need to train your staff. They need to know how to generate those invoices correctly, because if you have a lot of errors, then that means also you'll have to generate a lot of credit notes. which is also not good. And also it's maybe sometimes a trigger for audits. You need also to maintain proper records, especially this year going forward. You need to ensure all your records are straight so that you're able to claim the right expenses, and you can also prove that the income that came through your bank is the correct income as per your invoices. The other thing that people are omitting, and this one is very key and necessary. We've said the buyer PIN is not necessary for generation of the invoice. However, if you are a buyer and you need to claim that expense, the buyer PIN is mandatory. You have to ensure that when you're buying something that is an expense, that is going to be a business expense, you need to give out your KRA PIN at all point of purchases or point of sales so that you're able to claim that expense. So make sure you metilia manani, make sure you are able to give out your PIN at all point of sale so that you don't miss out on any business expense and you end up paying more taxes. The other thing is you work with a tax consultant so that he or she will be able to guide you on what you can do or what you need to do in order to be compliant, and also for issues that are not clear, the consultant will help you to narrow them out. Yeah, so the last slide is on how we can support you. You can reach out if you have any questions. You may reach out to us. Our telephone number is here as well as our email. So if you have any questions, we are here to support you, and you can reach out to us and we shall answer. And we are available for consultation. Thank you. Back to you, Karen.
Yeah. Wow, that was quite something. A wonderful session with so much to learn. I believe she has covered a lot from what is eTIMS, who needs to use eTIMS, some of the mistakes that we make, to a sample. She also gave us an example of what a business would look like if you're taking care of your expenses right and when you're not. Yeah. So I think there's just a lot of snippets here and there, and most of these we actually encounter them in our line of work every day if you're a business owner. So based on everything that our able lady Monica has covered, I would like to open the Q&A session. I understand there are a lot of questions that were sent to us when the registrations were happening. So maybe Monica will tell us how she will handle those. But meanwhile, let me open the floor for questions. I can see Davlan, your hand is up. Please unmute and ask your question.
Yes, my name is David. Hello.
Yes, David, we can hear you. Go ahead.
And a company called Davlan Export is an export company which do the export of fresh herbs and vegetables. So my question is for exports, because now the export is exempted from VAT. And so how do I need to be registered with the eTIMS?
Okay, thank you so much, David. Monica, do we take more, or would you like to address each as they are asked?
I think I need to address as it is asked.
Okay.
I didn't clearly get the question. Maybe you can just replace it. I lost him at some point.
I'm asking now, my company, Davlan, is an export is an export company, and export sales are not they are VAT exempted. So am I required to be registered with the eTIMS? And also things like the cost of sales when you do the production, say you want to produce a product A, you require this one, then for you to arrive to the cost of sales. So, and those are not something you can have a VAT, because say maybe you have done the water, you require 5 liters of water to to produce 5 kg of product A. So can you guide me on that? How do I need to handle that?
Okay, thank you for your question. And for exports, mostly I think these ones are done through almost the similar system like the imports, and therefore those ones are exempt from the eTIMS. However, if there is maybe any agency fees that is attracted to that, then that means the agency fee part needs to be compliant with eTIMS, and therefore you need to register on that. In terms of the expenses that go into your cost of sales, for example, what I know for some of these things currently, it's difficult to get eTIMS expenses from their suppliers. But ideally, maybe you need to have had maybe an eTIMS compliant bill for water and for electricity. And then that one will be able to help you claim your cost of sales. I know for now, most of these have not been fully streamlined in terms of the current KRA system and the eTIMS, and so they're still work in progress. And therefore, we'd hope that even as they continue updating their systems, then they will also address these challenges that most of the people are experiencing, because it's a challenge with lots of people. And therefore, we hope that this is going to streamline that. So maybe Davlan, maybe we can catch up after this maybe and see how we can help you to be compliant.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. Thank you, Monica, for taking that question. We have Tim. Tim, your hand is up. Please unmute and also ask.
Thank you, Lavin Consulting. My name is Tim. I have a question on the online portal. After registering, I tried to do an invoicing, but I'm not able to. I don't know how to go about that. I had to actually go back to the light web via eCitizen. So I don't know how to, you can guide on how to go about that. And now then, of course, the general question, I'm sure even some others will be having, is how do we handle the people who will not give you their details when it comes to something you mentioned on reverse invoicing? Thank you. 2 questions, actually.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tim. Monica has taken note. Monica?
Thank you so much, Tim, for that question. So on the online eTIMS, so once you register, the first time you log in, you'll be at, I think, top right corner, you'll be able to see an icon that says request for service. And then when you select that, then you're able to, it asks you whether it's an online, then you accept. Then it tells you, it will know you fill in some details there. There are details that they ask. And then once you submit, you'll get an SMS saying that your eTIMS registered. Then what you need to do is to log out again and then log in. So maybe, Tim, we can speak on the side and see maybe where you're stuck on that and whether you reached at that point. And then on the buyer details, now I think that is still a subject of discussion on how to go about it. Because if you do reverse invoicing and they don't accept, then that means that invoice is not acceptable to KRA. So I think for this, maybe I do not have a conclusive answer as of now, because it's something that is still under discussion, and to see how KRA will make it sure that these invoices can be claimed in full. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Monica. Tim, is that good enough for you?
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I'll try it later on after the meeting.
Okay, I've also added Monica's email address to the comment section. So you may feel free to send questions directly to her or reach out where you're stuck. So we have a few more questions. in the chat section. I cannot see any other hand up. But we have Ken. Ken was asking if you could talk a little about turnover tax. I know that's a whole webinar on its own, but I will allow you to comment on that before we proceed with the other questions.
Yeah, that's a whole webinar on turnover tax. And normally, in turnover tax, what it does, it takes all your income and subjects it to a tax. I think it's around I can't confirm the amount right now, but it taxes without allowing you to deduct any expenses. So some people would argue that it would be another option as opposed to the paying to the eTIMS solution that you need to take up, but it's only for small businesses, and there are some restrictions and qualifications that you meet for you to register as a turnover taxpayer. For example, your revenue, annual turnover must be below 5 million. You should also not have like withholding tax that is not final tax. So those are just some of the things that you need to consider before you register for turnover tax. Otherwise, this one becomes easier because you don't have to like claim any business expenses. So you'll just need to issue your invoices through eTIMS, and then all those incomes now will be subjected to the turnover tax rate. So maybe that one we can also speak on it. Maybe Karen, we can organize another webinar and also address that. And maybe in case he has any other questions, maybe he can reach out directly to me on the email address that has been provided. Then we'll be further available to consult.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Monica. Ken, I hope you've taken note. Turnover tax is a wide topic. We shall organize another webinar on that, but feel free to reach out to Monica. Our email address is on the chat section. So for Charles says that I have a client who hasn't filed returns since 2024, and they had some income in 2025. What are the procedures?
Yeah. I think give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. That's it. So you have to file your returns, and first you start with 2024. Of course, there will be applicable penalties for the late filing. And then in 2025, now you'll still file within the allowed tax procedures through the normal filing processes of the income tax returns. If it's a company, it's for the company. If it's for an individual, it's for an individual. So we shall just follow that. But before 2025, you have to file 2024. And unfortunately, there will be applicable penalties.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so Charles still is asking for reverse invoicing. What details do we need to get from the seller?
Yeah, so for reverse invoicing, you'll still need their PIN. So you'll need their PIN, and you'll also need probably their ID number as well. That one would help in the reverse invoicing. So those are the needed details. So it's something that is still in the rollout, so not fully rolled out. So there are still some challenges here and there. And now as people utilize it, that's when they know which areas is not working. So it's something that is still under process.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I hope, Charles, you're a bit comfortable now. We had some questions that were sent to us. Monica, I don't know how you want to address those. I know they're quite a handful. Would you like to address maybe the most practical one right now and send the rest some responses to their emails, or how would you want us to go about that?
Yeah, I think maybe we can address maybe one or two questions. So maybe you'll decide which ones we can address here, then the rest we can respond on email. So maybe you can give me one or two, then we'll see.
Okay. So for me, I think I'll pick what is more most related to this webinar that we are having. Like there was Hannah. Hannah was asking how do eTIMS receipts. She was asking something about commercial rent and how to get an eTIMS receipt from that. I know most people really struggle with that because they want to kind of justify or rather have the rental expense accounted for. Maybe we can talk about that.
So we said, as we are stating the webinar, is that all businesses need to be on eTIMS, including the landlords. So ideally, even landlords need to be registered on eTIMS. So when you're on your eTIMS, there's a whole process of how you register. Like the first thing you need is to register the item on eTIMS. So for this case, it's rent. So KRA has classified a list of services using codes. So you need to check out which code mostly relates to the service that you're providing or to the item that you're selling. And so once you register the item, you need to select whether it's vatable or not. I think for commercial, mostly are vatable, but it will depend also on whether you're VAT registered or not. So you need to select the tax, the type of tax that is applicable to that particular item. And then now you register that item. And now once you're there, you'll be able also to input your customers there. To register the customers, you need their contact information and also their PIN numbers. Then once you register the customer, now you can proceed to issue the tax invoice. Under the transaction management menu, you'll select sales receipt, then new. And then you'll be able to select the customer there and also select the registered item, which is rent in this case. So it's much similar to any other business. So they have to be registered on eTIMS and issue the normal rent invoice normally as an eTIMS invoice. So it's the same process. So if she needs maybe more clarifications, we are here for consultation and to assist when necessary.
Okay, thank you very much, Monica. I think we will stop there because of the time. We know our amazing people are going back to work and to whatever they had planned for the afternoon. It's exactly 2 minutes to 2 p.m. And I think we should just make arrangements to wind up. So I will invite you to give one final remarks. Just say one thing that we will need to close. But before you do that, I want us to know that we are going to arrange for a follow-up webinar. We are going to have another webinar on eTIMS because we have not addressed even half the questions that were sent to us. So just to save on time, let's just plan another webinar on eTIMS for SMEs. And then we'll go through all these questions that we have. I hope that is okay and acceptable and fair to all of us. So Monica, please just one parting shot.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Karen. And I also want to extend my gratitude to the audience, to the attendees for listening in and for allowing me to speak about these eTIMS. And also to mention that sometimes whatever is on paper looks easy than what is on the ground. So maybe if you are encountering a different challenge on the ground, we are here to help you out, and we are looking forward to hearing from you, your experience, and maybe how you would like us to assist. Thank you so much.
Great. You've heard from her. We are here to support. So we will be looking forward to hearing more from you through our email addresses, which have been shared, and I've also shared our WhatsApp number. Please save our contact. We'll be sending more updates, and those who have saved our number can view on WhatsApp status, see what we are planning for all of us. So thank you so much for that. We really appreciate you taking your time to join us, to share a bit of your afternoon with us. And we hope the webinar was insightful. It helped you a bit. It made some impact. And we hope to see you soon for the other webinars that we have lined up for you. Yeah, so God bless you all. So thank you, Tim. You're following us on LinkedIn. We really appreciate. Jen says it's very insightful. Thank you very much. We appreciate the support. I think feel free to leave at your own convenience. I will just put a feedback link that you can leave us feedback and the topics that you would want us to cover in future as we live. Thank you.